Hey there, friends, and welcome back to Imagine with Royce. If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name's Royce. I'm a painter, sculptor, and a collector. I recently got a pretty good question on Instagram, and I wanted to make a video about it. What is Disneyland like when all the guests leave, when the lights go out? All right, so for those that do not know or are new here on this channel, I am a former Disney artist. I worked under Walt Disney Imagineering, amazing art direction, and I worked with some pretty amazing artists at the figure finishing audio animatronic department, and I worked overnight. So a lot of you want that role, a lot of messaging. How do I become a painter? How do I do this? Just so all of you know, that role, first and foremost, is not easy to get, and I am so blessed to have been able to achieve that position at such a young age. I was 23 at the time, but it's also extremely difficult on your body because you start at 3 a.m. So what does that mean? I would go to sleep at 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon and wake up at 2 to be at the parks at 3 because I live so close to the resort. But that's a lot, and that's Monday through Friday, so it's full time. Every now and then we would work the odd Saturday if we needed to get the attraction open after a refurb, but it is a lot on the body. Your body's just not meant to be up at that hour, but you're not alone when you are clocked in at that hour. So this is what Disneyland is like. Well, for me, I would clock in at the animation shop, and then we would go out into the attractions and refurb, paint, touch up, clean, and just do as much as we could uh, in the morning hours before park ops got there and started, doing their tests and adjustments to like the ride vehicles and all of that. But on my journey in my little golf cart to whatever attraction that I was going to, there were so many people. So a lot of you know during the parades, there are parade lights, right? Those giant things that pop up on Main Street that light up. Those come on at night. They don't just, light up, Technicolor rainbow. They actually just shine white. And it helps quite a bit. None of the show lights on Main Street go off. So like the twinkling around, the Penny Arcade or any of that, all that's still going, and the castle stays lit, which is really neat. Every now and then they would turn it off to test like lighting, but for the most part it was lit, and it was lit up really bright. There was, I could honestly say, hundreds of people wandering around. People that I would see towards like 4 or 5 would be horticulture, so people that are switching out flowers, pruning the trees, stuff like that. They generally worked pretty early. The sun was rising for them, luckily, but there were people like me that were in the attractions. But before I even get there, let's talk about how Disneyland is cleaned, because obviously people spit, sweat, bleed on that floor. So how does the resort look so clean? There are humongous hoses, and I always felt bad, driving over them in my golf cart. And I don't know what their positions are called, but they hose down all of the floor everywhere. So if you get there really early, every now and then you might see a puddle or two. That's why, if you are at rope drop. And when you get into the attraction, I would often run into people that were vacuuming the ride. So there are a whole team, and this is true for even the resort hotels and like World of Disney, that vacuum everything. And, we were pretty much in charge of like the dusting, I would say. If there was nothing for me to do, I would always go to Tiki and just dust everything. But I would see them vacuuming, sometimes mopping. And then there was painters other than us that painted stuff that didn't move. So like, for instance, in Mickey's house, there's a lot of stuff that's touched, right? Because kids and adults, and you're waiting in that line. Let's see, in Mickey's garden, like Pluto's house, there's a completely separate paint team that just painted stuff like that didn't move, that was stationary and statuary. And then, of course, there was the animation team. Then we would paint anything that was animated, that moved, that had any sort of robotics attached to it. That's what we would paint. So we would cross paths quite a bit with that particular team. I have no idea what they're called, but they were a pretty small group of guys just like us. It's interesting. It was an all boy world except for one girl in the figure finishing department, and then our AD and our AD's AD were both female. But there was just a humongous team that we would run into and say hi to, and of course they're always testing ride vehicles. So there's like maintenance and mechanics. They're always changing out light bulbs. There's a whole lighting team. For those that do not know, if you want to be an Imagineer, there's lighting and show designs. There's an art director and he has like 4 or 5 associates. So that's something that you could look into if you are interested in becoming an Imagineer that you may not have known that existed. There's just so many roles, and it's really kind of eerie when you walk around Disneyland at night, or when you drive around, because it's a place that is usually so loud, that has so much music and laughter and babies screaming and people talking and shouting, and you just hear nothing. Of course, there's like cars, legit full-on trucks and cars that are parked on Main Street. So it's kind of weird, and it kind of blows the scale when a just regular truck is parked on Main Street. You really see the forced perspective of the buildings. And it's something that I always kind of remember, driving my golf cart in front of the castle, stepping out for a minute, just looking out at Disneyland, having the park to myself. It's something that not a lot of people can say that they've had, and it's an honor, it's a privilege, but I really wasn't there as a guest, like enjoying it, like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Remember, I was an artist, so for me it was a lot of weight on my shoulders, because I just know that Walt had such a vision for this park and such a dream, and it's truly fascinating to me how that dream is transferred to the workers, or it should be. Some of them, that dream is a nightmare. But for me, it was a dream come true. It was really cool to, just to some of the places I've been, on top of Main Street and the train station. I went to the very top and looked down, and that park just has so much history. It's going to be 70 years old. And I was just one pea in a pool of peas that have worked there and had the honor and the privilege of being there at night alone and just witnessing the park when it's quiet. And I believe that that's when Walt would walk around and kind of like see what his Imagineers have done and what could be done. I remember talking to Oscar, who worked at Carnation Cafe on Main Street. I think he worked there 60 years. When I first started at Disneyland in 2012, he was still there. And I remember eating there for breakfast, and I talked to him and I was like, hey, did you ever see Walt? Because I think he started in 1956 or 57. And he said, yes, I actually did see him many times in the mornings, riding his bicycle around the park, enjoying it. That was kind of Walt's only time to enjoy the park where he wasn't being mobbed or attacked. He was enjoying the fruits of his labor. And that's just such a charming thing to think about. Such a very successful businessman, but also he was just a kid at heart, enjoying the park that he loved. And I had just so much fun memories. There's also a lot of raccoons and possums and rats and mice. By the way, Pirates, I hope Disney doesn't get mad at me saying this, but I saw quite a bit of rats and mice in Pirates. They would chew the clothing and the wires and stuff, but that's another video. But yeah, that's Disneyland at night. I hope that I answered that question. I hope that this is, an interesting video. There's just something that is so magical about a place that is so packed and it could be so quiet. Every now and then, if you are there right at park closing, and if you could be like one of the last guests out, and I know a lot of people try to be, turn around, just look at the emptiness. That's kind of what it's like, truly. I remember standing in the balcony of the castle, Sleeping Beauty's castle, and looking down at the little drawbridge and looking down Main Street, and it was just such a magical place, a view that not a lot of people get to go up there. And for me, that was like an Imagineering dream come true. And Disneyland will never be complete, y'all. And there's a lot more videos to come, by the way. So that answers that question. I hope that you liked it. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop a comment below. And I thank you all for watching. I wish you all a magical day, a wonderful day. And always remember, dreamers, not only to follow your dreams, but to chase them. Later.